What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode, what is this, 13, Xander?
Yeah, 13, man.
I think it's 13. Episode 13, Insurance Isn't Boring. I'm your host, Elijah Corujo, joined as always by the beautiful Xander Wolle, my running buddy. Today we got something special for y'all. We normally just have one guest, but we couldn't do today without their counterpart. So we're joined today by the dynamic duo, Jared Gillum and Jordan Gillum. They're agency owners with our company here at Symmetry Financial Group. They've got a couple agency owners on their team too, so they're growing. And we want to dig into a couple things that we think will help people who want to lead and want to grow something beyond just selling. And one of the things that are unique about them is they're not only breaking records and kicking ass, but they're a couple in this industry building a business together. And there's a lot of people who become entrepreneurs and want to do this with their spouse or with a family member, and these guys are doing it. And so we're going to get the chance to interview them, pick their brain, and see where the conversation leads us. But welcome to the show, Jordan and Jared. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing good, babe. How you doing?
Fantastic. Today has been amazing, like so far. And now we're here with you guys. It's crazy.
Living the dream. Living the dream. I love it. Well, just to give you guys a little bit of insight into who we're talking to, I've known Jordan and Jared now for almost 7 years. They got into the industry and joined our company a few months before I did. And I could not take credit for where I'm at without edifying these people, because believe it or not, I learned how to dial and book appointments by listening to Jordan Gillum dial. And so I learned how to do what I do by watching this woman. She's a badass at this, and they're incredible teachers at this too, leading a growing organization. So we're going to dig into some fun stuff. But real quick, I think it could be good to establish a little bit of street cred here. Xander, I'm gonna pass the mic to you first, buddy. What'd you sell this week so far, man? I know it's Friday, week's not over yet. But what do you got so far, man?
I'm hovering right around 9K on the week, which I'm trying to get past that 15-20 mark. So we'll see. We got conference next week, so I think that should be the gas on the fire that is needed, but shaping up to be a pretty good month.
Well, you're kicking my butt. I'm only at like 7,800 so far for the week. Not too shabby. And
pretty darn close.
Jordan, what do you have for the week, Jordan? Or what do you have for the month so far?
Oh, man. Well, I would say this has probably been not the best month for me to like brag on myself because we've been so focused on conference and interviews and stuff that I've been, pulled a little out of the field right now. So I think I just wrote one actually, and I'm just waiting for signatures. So I'm like 12 for the month. And I'm at 4 for the week, to just give you some perspective of how the month has gone. We've been really focused on recruiting and building this week or this month.
I love it.
Really.
I love it.
And
Jared,
just to point something out before we go to Jared, because Jared's got some monster numbers for us. Like 12 grand on the month. Like we've been in this business for so long that you almost get desensitized to that. Like that's that's like a good month for probably 95% of insurance agents in the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I would be upset if I finished the month under 15, basically. So that's why I'm still running appointments today, is because I don't like finishing under 15 at a minimum, though.
Yeah. And I also want to point out, like, she's doing that simultaneously while, interviewing, bringing new people to conference, right? Like training agents and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's not just the one track mind, which is mind boggling to do, all the while growing our daughter that is expected in April. So, I mean, come on, like
he's growing a human while doing all of this, y'all. I love it. Jared, what's the team at for the month, man?
Team for the month is sitting a little close. It's above the 100K mark. Excuse me. I was pulling big numbers here. But team for the month is sitting at, I believe we're at like 120. So we're breaking our
babe, we're at 140 for the month.
40. See, I'm paying
Yeah.
attention. Yeah. See how that works. But yeah, no, we're doing great. I'm as you can tell, I've got a lot of conference mind going on. We're focusing on butts in seats at the moment now, but don't get me wrong, right? APV is huge and everything for these people walking in with cash flow glow, in the conference. But yeah, butts in seats and ticket sales is where my big focus is at right now.
I love it. And even all the while, you guys are selling over. I mean, by the end of today, who knows? I mean, could be close to that $150,000 mark. We'll see what happens.
It is at Friday.
I love it. I love it.
I see us crossing, like right now, growth year over year from February to February. We're on pace to definitely double what we did last February. So I think we could do more than that though by the end of today. We got a lot of appointments on the books through the whole agency, so we're really excited.
Heck yeah. Well, one other question, like you guys have been doing this for a while and you're leading a team. Lifetime in the Gillum agency, what is the lifetime APV that has been submitted for you guys?
So it's funny. I appreciate y'all for bringing this to our attention. This is not something that we normally bring up and look at. We're sitting at 6.1 million in APV sold in the 8 years that we've been a part of Symmetry. I mean, there's a lot of big fish in this pond. Don't get me wrong, but that's a nice number to look at for our team.
That's a huge number. That is a huge number, and even more importantly, think about all the families that have been protected to get you guys there, right? Like that's 100%. Elijah and I hit on that so much. Is you hear these salespeople who are selling soaps and shampoos, Jack and the Beanstalk beans, like stuff that people don't actually need, and like we're helping people protect one of the most difficult times in their lives. And it's just, if you can't tell, I really am a big fan of this industry. And we've got a bunch of questions for y'all on leadership building. I mean, Jared, I'm pretty sure one time you told me you had 35 interviews in a day, which, like I said before we got on here, don't even know how to wrap my head around that. That'd be a little overwhelming for me. But, Elijah introduced them. I also wanted to give my 2 cents because these are two individuals who have been really influential to me as I've grown in my role here. On the recruiting side, I got the chance to, Jared, I remember in Costa Rica, we talked for like 2 hours about, recruiting and building something that's going to outlive you and just your mentality around all that. You're so humble. You're like, well, I just took it all from Chris, but you have your own spin on everything. So you've been so helpful on the building side and the leadership and mindset. And then, Jordan, very similar to Elijah, like I learned how to dial. I learned how to like dialing from you. I learned how to run appointments from you. And it just kind of more of like the 30,000 feet. The first event I showed up to, for anybody listening, like Jordan and Jared are cross-line to me. So they're still in the agency, but they have no financial incentive in my success. And Jordan took me to the side and was hyping me up. I think we took a picture like mimicking the statue in Denver. And so got a lot of love in my heart for you guys and just really excited to hear how y'all think, like, about when you're thinking about building a team, what are things that you look for in an agent? What do you want to cultivate? You guys have a really good accountability call that y'all allowed me to sit in on the other week. I think that's huge for anybody building a team because people always come in and have big goals, right? But taking action and taking the right steps to achieve those goals is a totally different story. And so I guess that kind of takes us to like, what is it that you guys look for in an agent? What do you look to cultivate and how do you help cultivate that? Because it can be, and it's new. I didn't know anything about insurance or talking about, hey, give me your social and your banking info after like, hey, we just talked about you dying, right? So it's an interesting thing to be teaching somebody.
Yeah, babe, you want to kickstart that?
Yeah, what a question. I think what had happened first was Jared and I, it's trial and error first off. Like, I love what we've learned about leadership is you learn about leadership through leading, right? So, you're going to have a lot of mistakes along the way of, who you show up to be for them, who you're looking for. Because at first, all you're looking for is anything that's breathing, coming in the door. You're good with that. You're like, awesome. You said yes, that's good for me. That means you're on my team, and voila, we're a team now, right? Versus getting really picky about it and also identifying, what does support really mean? What does challenge really mean? Who does the person you're talking to, do they deserve your time? And are you giving them the best version of yourself when you do show up with that time? That comes with trial and error, tons of people coming in the door. And I think that was the first thing that I would tell anybody who's looking at leadership is there's no perfect way to go about it. There's going to be something about you that's a gift. For us, we have two different gifts. Like Jared and I understood, we have strengths in different areas of our business to where we can divide and conquer. We can separate roles based on, what we were talking about this morning, the 70-30 rule. What gives back to me doesn't always give back to him and vice versa. And what challenges me and causes disruption is not always something that makes him feel that way. So, that's where we were able to take a look at who did we want in our organization? When do we want to put one of us in front of that person based on what they need from us? And it's happened just over time. I mean, it's been 8 years. To thanks, Elijah, we've been friends for 7 years is such a wild sentence. Because what were you, like 7 years ago? You know what I mean? I was close to 7 years ago.
I was almost 9 years old 7 years
Right?
ago.
How I feel. It's like, we were 23 when we came here, and we didn't know jack about squat when it comes to leading people or coming to like insurance or running a business. We didn't know anything. So we learned it all through being a part of Symmetry. Like I mean, I feel spoiled, honestly, because we got the best of the best on training. We got the best of the best in character development. We had people who actually had our back and not just like wanting something from us, to where we knew we could fail safely in this business because there was always more to come afterwards if we just kept going. So I just wanted to paint that initial picture, though, when it comes to leadership, because if I hadn't, it would sound like we just have it figured out and that's how we did it. Right? That's not the truth. Like, we had to make a ton of mistakes over the years in order to figure out what worked for us. And that would be always the thing we would hear at conference. We'd go to conference and be like, we don't know anything. Somebody help us. And they would say, what have you tried? We'd say, we tried this, and hear me out, we tried this. And they'd go, what else? And then that was it. It's like, we didn't do the what else. Like, we didn't try anything else. Is the reason why we hadn't figured out what worked for us. So I'll pass that to Babe there so he can talk about, what we've really zoned in on in our roles that we play in leadership in our organization.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Because it's, thankfully, now that we're here and we do have a working system that helps those new agents get up and it plays to our strong suits. Not going to say that it's, it'll probably be polished even further the more that we talk to more people. Brand new agents come in and point out like holes in our swing sometimes, right? Like, hey, I feel like I got let down here to where I didn't know my next step. So we're always trying to pay attention to that. Don't get me wrong. What is working really well right now is my strong suit that I've had to dial back, bring in and kind of bring out a little bit was I'm really good at how do I say this? Like, having a wall, being a little bit cold initially. And again, I've had to dial that back, obviously, because if people want to work with you, they want to work with you because they like you. So there's got to be some level of play there, right? What Jordan is extremely good at is only seeing the positives from people and dumping a bunch of energy and time into those people. So what I'm good at is filtering through the people that, deserve the time and the energy from her. So what we figured out is a good, filter system, right? I've gotten good at not being abrasive, obviously, in that first initial interview, but just laying out, this is what we're looking for, and this is what we're going to need from you. What are you looking for? And I'll back you. I'll meet you where you're at if you're willing to meet like the minimum requirements here. So I want to make sure that when we're talking to those new agents coming in, not a lot of people have a ton of background in this industry. So we're not expecting a ton, right? The simple thing of this is I can't do the work for you. Like that's really just the base level minimum requirement that we're looking for. If you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to start making mistakes, we're going to be there and pick you up the whole way through the process. I'm willing to back you up. I'm willing to take phone calls while I'm on my way home from the gym to hurry up and sweatily throw on a collared shirt so I can be there to back you up in an appointment if I need to, right? Like I'm willing to do that for you because you're moving forward. We can't help steer a parked car like you hear a lot. So I'm the filter through that process. But once we find somebody that is willing to put in the work, then both Jordan and I are there to back them up through the whole process. I mean, something that we learned from other agents is they have, like underwriting support chats and like group text messages and stuff to where it's not just Jordan and I helping those people out. It's our AOs. And then it's our new like team leaders and key leaders kind of coming up that are helping those people out, because then it gives them a voice of leadership. So we're not only just focused on that new agent, we're also just constantly looking to try and improve that chain of leadership that goes up. And what we've seen help us a lot to communicate back and forth is like shorthand. And so what we've done is like a 0 to 7, and we've stolen a lot of this from Andrew Jimenez. So like 0 to 1 is licensing. 1 to 2 is like training and first application. 2 to 3 is dials. 3 to 4 is appointments. 4 to 5 is the first recruit. 5 to 6 is team leader, and 6 to 7 is key leader. Normally, once people get to key leader, it's minute changes and little tweaks that they need just to keep moving forward. They know the base levels. They know what they need to continue with. So whenever we're talking about agents, we kind of will identify what pipeline they're in right now. Are they 2 to 3? Okay, we understand what they need next. So that keeps the fun conversations that we used to have where it's like, let me give you this person's life story so you understand how to help them. We don't need to spend 20, 30 minutes on explaining somebody so you can help them. What pipeline are they in? Now we know what next steps. We know what they've accomplished and we know what they're moving into next. So that's helped a ton, and it's streamlined a lot. And it's also played in that, like I know Jordan touched on it a little bit, but that 70-30 rule, burnout is heavy if we're not paying attention to that. So when we're focusing on 70% of the daily activities we're doing, giving us energy, and 30% taking from us, that's a good balance to have. And the closer and closer we get to that, I'm not saying it's perfect every day, but the closer and closer we get to that, man, this feels like a video game every day that we're playing this, because it's just, it feels good. Then we're, you know what I mean? It's simple. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is simple once you find that balance.
I love it. You guys just dropped a lot on us that we gotta unpack some of that, because for the people who don't know you guys, you all did not come in here with experience building an insurance agency, selling insurance. What was your guys' background prior to getting partnered with our company? What were you guys doing before?
I'm
Maybe you want to
assuming
go
you want
first?
me to go first. Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like you want me to go first. So my background was in bartending and waitressing, which I was a really good waitress and I was a terrible bartender. They just, I guess, saw a young blonde woman and said, put her behind the bar. And I'm like, I don't know what any of this is. So that's cool. And then I got fired from that job. Then I did some sales for a little bit in timeshare. I was good at it after being really, really bad at it for at least a year and a half. The reason why I got good at it is because, one, they moved me departments because I wasn't good at high pressure initial sales. I was good at customer service and sales is where they found that my personality fit better in the things that they had available. But I also was exceptionally naive. And one of the things I wasn't naive to was that if I trusted training, then I would get the results that's in the training. And so I remember my first sale in timeshare was my first day in that new department. And I was so used to being told no all the time from failing for a year and a half that I walked away from the sale and came to my manager and I was like, she said yes. So like, now what do we do? And she goes, what are you doing talking to me? Go fill out the paperwork. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, nobody tells me yes in this industry. And then I blew up. Like, as far as sales go, the only guy who beat me when I was working there was a guy who was constantly being tracked down by the law because he was so illegally selling. there. It was insane. I won't name drop, but anybody who ever worked with me back then knows exactly who I'm talking about. So I was second place behind somebody who was illegally doing the job. And so, but it was just because, like I said, I was just following training. So as soon as I learned what timeshare was and what I was doing to people, I cried my eyes out and I quit my job because I couldn't get behind it. I thought I was helping people and I hadn't helped anybody. And so, I had these lovely relationships, all of this trust built between me and these families, but I had let them down because I wasn't actually being of service to them. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then I sold pillows in a Costco for about 6 weeks for $9 an hour while I was looking for something that would fill the role for us. And this was it. This is what happened. Somebody came up to me as I was about to go back to working for timeshare because I didn't know what I was going to do. And we'd blown so much money because we had made terrible financial decisions during that time because financial education is not a thing in timeshare. They just golden handcuffs you to high payments so that you keep coming into work the next day is basically what it was. They're like, get the big house, get the flashy car, spend the money you don't have because you can always make more, was the sentence that they would always get you with. And so as we did that with no income, basically, because $9 an hour is not income, at least to suffice what we were used to, I was like, I'm going to have to go back to timeshare. And the day I went to go get my license out of retirement to take to my next interview, somebody came up to me and said, have you ever thought about selling life insurance? And gave me a business card for Symmetry Financial Group. And I was like, do you need like a resume? Do I need a college degree? Because it's not good over here. And they're like, no, you're just interview and check it out. And that was 8 years ago, and it completely changed our life. And I'm so grateful for it every single day. Babe's background's a little harder than mine because at least I was, earning a lot of income on the 1099 side, before coming over here.
Yeah, mine was much different. Out of high school, I went into restaurants. Executive chefing and kind of running a restaurant was exactly what I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Anytime that I had fun in childhood was like cooking with my mom, like barbecuing with my dad, whatever the case may be for that. So I was like, it's all fun. Let's just go in and make money from having fun. Is anybody in the back end restaurant knows, like, don't get me wrong, there are good days in restaurants. Mostly not, though. People complaining and arguing, and you didn't cook it perfectly right. So it was fun for a minute. The camaraderie, like the adrenaline rush from running through and kind of getting stuff done, that was cool. And stepping into different restaurants, moving up from dishwasher, prep, line, sous. But then every time I started moving from like a sous chef to an executive chef and starting getting kind of groomed for that position, I got a kind of behind the curtains look at what that executive chef, that life looked like. And coming in at 3:30 in the morning and maybe leaving at 2 in the afternoon was not necessarily the idea that I had when I was younger, thinking of the dream of an executive chef and running a restaurant. Like I knew long hours, but I was like, dang, that long? I'm like, holy crap, that's every day, 6 days a week? Good Lord. Okay. And then maybe 7 if I need to step in, or, you know what I mean? So all of the responsibility with like a little bit of a pay gap between that sous chef and executive chef. So I was stepping into probably 4 or 5 different executive chef roles. And every time I was like, no, thank you. And every time I said, no, thank you, I would normally get booted because it was like, well, then you're not here for the team and all that kind of stuff. So then I'd have to go work for a different restaurant. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just taking one executive chef's life and judging the entire industry on it. So it took me 5 different restaurants and 5 different roles, stepping and getting groomed into that position, to understand like, yeah, this isn't what I wanted. Like, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. So thankfully enough, met Jordan around that time. And she obviously kind of introduced me to that sales model where you write your own paycheck pretty much. And I was like, holy crap, I had no idea. Like that was a thing. And it was long hours, but I didn't last very long in timeshare because about 6 months in, I got a peek behind the curtain. And I was like, I didn't like this either. I started looking at the lifestyles of the people that were ahead of us, and I didn't like how that looked. So I wasn't making a lot of money because, anybody that knew me in those timeshare days, I was talking people out of the sale. Like I was like, you don't need this. This isn't going to help you. Do you understand what 29.98% interest rate means on a credit card that you're going to load down for a down payment? You're never going to pay it off. It's not going to, like, don't do that. And they're like, but we hear about renting and making money. Okay, well, go talk to somebody who's, anyways, we can go down a rabbit hole, but you get the point. So I didn't like it, but I still sold, funny enough, because how funny is it when you tell people, like, don't do it? They're like, don't tell me
What
what
even works now?
I want it more. Yeah, hilarious. But yeah, so I mean, I sold enough to make decent money, to where like I could like cover rent and different things like that. But it wasn't enough to where it was like, okay, this is what sales can be for me. So when we were stepping into this environment and Jordan found Symmetry, I was very chip on the shoulder, very much.
You weren't trusting. You wanted to figure out
like,
what's going on.
Where do they have us? Like, where are they getting us behind the scenes? Like, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna promise us this much and we get to control our schedule, and that sounds a lot more like pay attention to this hand while this hand's doing all the work, right? Kind of thing. So when I stepped into this business, I wanted to talk to everybody. Thankfully, I got to talk to Brandon and Casey, the owners of the business. One of my first corporate overviews, one of those down in Atlanta. And I was like, all right, either they're holy crap magicians and I'm not realizing anything that's going on right now, or they're the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. Like through that, not once have they not been genuine through the 8 years that we've been here. And thankfully, probably 8 months in, I stopped to like trying to pull back curtains, and I was like, all right, it is what it is. Now we just need to work hard. So that drug us down, because obviously you can imagine me being in the same household as Jordan, where she just understands training equals results and starts moving forward with that. But I'm over here in her ear going, well, what about this? And what about that? But what about this? Like that, it only slowed us down. And I'm not saying to not be careful. I'm just saying like, we can't, 8 months is way too long to try and vet something. It should take a week. You vet something, it looks good, right? And we move forward. So that was our step into this. Like, if you look at like the first 6 weeks in business, Jordan sold like 18,000 in APV her first 6 weeks in this business. I sold 1,800, right? It's massive difference on belief factors there and what we're doing. But it was the moment that we actually delivered like one of our first death checks. That was the moment where I was like, all right, full circle, got to stop playing games with this. Start listening to people on how to do this properly, because we are making a difference. Like 6 months of mortgage payments was the one thing that kept her in the home when her husband died, where they raised their kids. Like, we have to do a lot more of that rather than trying to protect myself on things that don't actually exist.
Yeah. And I
That's
resonate
good.
with that big time, because I was the same way as you, Jared. I came in and I was shooting holes in the business model for the first, like, what are they not telling me? There's no way. I say this all the time. To me, it seems statistically impossible that there were all these people in one place who led with service, cared for people so deeply, wanted to make a positive impact on the world. And oh, by the way, they're all making a killer living while they're doing it. It's like, no, my brain could not comprehend that.
Mine did. Mine was like, I'm home. And yours is like, there's no way this exists. I was like, look at them. They're all going on trips. And it's not the top 3 people. It's like 65 people are going on a trip to Dorado Beach. I'm like, we could be one of 65 at least. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, and it's like I've said this before too. The bill of goods that has been sold to me at no point has anything that I've been told been untrue. But so we got a little bit on y'all's background, and so you found Symmetry. And I mean, Jordan, 18K in your first 6 weeks. You really came busting through the doors. Did you guys hit any hiccups? Did you ever? We asked about quitting phases. Like, was there any time where you were like, yeah, this sounded good, but rubber's meeting the road, and I don't know how I feel about, like, does this actually work?
Well, he only talked about the first 6 weeks. You know what I mean? 6 weeks is enough time to keep your head down to prove a system right. And I did. And I was excited. And then I realized that nobody's going to make me come to work tomorrow. So then I took 2 weeks off because we put $9,000 in the bank, which paid off some other things. And we were finally not less than zero. And I was like, heck yeah, I can do this. And this is easy and blah, blah, blah. And Yeah, no, after 2 weeks of taking downtime and again draining the bank account, which is another example of making terrible financial decisions because of the lack of self-discipline or knowledge we had in life at 23 years old. It was like, all right, well, I'll just get back on this horse. That's no big deal. And the lack of humility, this understanding and pressure I would put on myself rather than back on the training when I felt like I didn't know anything was the major friction that I experienced in my first few weeks. After seeing so much success, I believed in it. I was like, this works. So all I have to do is what I've been doing, thinking I'm the difference. In what it turned into is the system was the difference. But I put the pressure back on myself after that. And then that internal conflict of the fact that I couldn't understand why I couldn't get this going again the same way I did the first few weeks. I couldn't identify the fact that there was a lack of humility and an insane amount of ego going on. Because, of course, when you do well in your first 3 to 6 weeks, like I did, you're going to hear your name. You're going to be on a national call as one of the top new writers in the company. You're going to be heard on a master agency call within the cook group, because that's all we had back then was a Monday call. We didn't have more calls like we do now to suffice the remoteness of this business. And everything. I mean, when you would hear your name, or if you would get a phone call from Chris Cook or get a phone call from someone in Symmetry being like, wow, way to go. Your head gets like this big and you're just like, wow, look at me. I'm so great. That doesn't help anything as far as like getting back on the horse and getting back to the basics. And so then his words that he would have about trying to look behind the curtain would sink a little bit deeper with me, because I would edify this consistent way of thinking in our household in my daily actions. Like my brain would be looking to validate what he would say, because then I started getting similar results anytime I would do it my way, not Symmetry's way. And because it was a different world back then. Elijah remembers. I mean, we had to drive to people's homes. That was just that factor of things, of being able to schedule your time and structure your income, made a huge difference compared to the way that it is now. And so we had a lot of we had some tough times coming out of that humility section, because as soon as I finally threw my hands up and was like, well, you know what, I'm just going to do what the training says, and if it doesn't work, this whole thing is shablam. And then turns out it was amazing and we made a bunch of money and everything was fine again. I was like, oh, it's my fault. Got it. Okay. And then we did that about 6 more times. So
I love that. So real quick too, because I mean, you're talking about momentum, and we've talked about this a lot, and how when you lose momentum and you're not getting the results that you maybe previously got, or you didn't get the result that you expected to get, you get humbled. And some people quit when they get humbled. They have one bad day, one bad week, and that's the thing that kicks them out of the business. Obviously, that's not your guys' story. And what I love about your guys' structure and how you guys do things is you guys divide and conquer. You're not both booking appointments, running appointments, doing interview. You're not both doing everything. You guys have systems in place, and we could talk for 3 days just about the systems that make what you do possible. But I'm curious, because some people do this business solo. Some people do this and then they just have a supportive spouse. That's me. My wife wants nothing to do with selling insurance, but she loves it for me. And she's always in my corner cheering me on. You guys are in the trenches together, building your empire together. How did you guys figure out or delegate who does what? How did you guys find your lane that you guys stay in? Because I think that is what's really key about how you do what you do. I mean, we just read last month, the book of the month is The One Thing. How did you guys find your one thing for each of you? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Testing out a bunch of things, like a bunch of things. So before diving into the process of that, the one thing I do want to preface everything with is be careful of the flavor of the week, though. Because, right, if we only test something for 1 week, that's not enough time to see trends, to see if anything's good or bad, or to make sure that we're paying attention to both pros and cons of that one thing, right? So we normally gave it about 6 weeks. That's a pretty solid average to kind of run through things. But there was a lot of things to test. It's a great question because it's the wisdom that we got from Danny Young in a power couple breakout session back in Raleigh, North Carolina at a conference where we showed up early to that breakout session, sat in the front, had our notebooks ready, had our questions laid out, had space between the questions for all the answers that we were going to get and stuff like that. And then as soon as the class started, Danny goes, before we get started, I want to ask, does anyone have any initial questions of what they're looking to try to get out of this class? And me and Jordan were like, boom, like right here, like we got the question, right? And he was like, yes, Gillums, what do you guys got? And we were like, we don't know how to work together. Like, we don't know what we're good at. And he goes, okay, what have you guys tried? We're like, well, we tried, for us to both run appointments. And then we tried for me to run appointments and her to run appointments. And we're here now. So that both of those things really didn't work out super well. So we're just trying to figure out, what's the secret? Like, how do you guys figure it out? And he goes, you guys need to go try and do more things. And then he like moved on and me and Jordan were like, no. Like, keep looking at us. Like, I want the answer. Not, that wasn't an answer. So once we kind of sat there for a minute and then had this open page of questions with all this space in between for answers, we were like, try more things. Okay. Like, whatever. Like, we honestly, we walked away from that conference being like, that's not what we really wanted, but
we were so upset.
Hey,
like,
literally.
we were just like, this is baloney. Like, we have tried, okay? And then turns out, no, we hadn't. Like, we really, like, we were taught also in that class to make a list of strengths. And that was where we sat down, we looked at each other and we're like, okay, do you even really like running appointments? Like, do you like that? And then he'd be like, well, no. No. I was like, I love this part. He's like, ooh, that's one of your strengths. That like you love running appointments, you like making dials, write that down, right? And then it was like, well, what about onboarding agents? What about coaching? What about, paperwork? What about, we had so many things that we were navigating through that we realized we do on a weekly basis. Like, do we spend time making leaderboards? Do we spend time coaching agents? Do we spend time onboarding and follow up and stuff like that? And we've started really also scratching out what of this work could we hire out for? Because both of us hate it and it does not give back to us if we can financially afford it, as far as like starting to delegate, because we had to take on those roles and wear those hats initially, but that's not how we are now. Like, now we have a lot of this stuff is hired out and he does specifically what he's strong at and I do what gives back to me.
I love that, because that's the thing, that was the thing through that meeting, after kind of getting past our emotions and then still being open to what they were saying, being honest with the current state of that. We still took notes in that class, and I want to say that is a power move in beginning any business, is literally, brainstorming and writing down everything that you do. And, like everything, like, hey, do I go update this tracker? Do I send this email? Do I respond to these text messages? Like, everything that you do. And then writing down, okay, this gives back to me. This doesn't. Holy crap, I despise this. And then understanding how to delegate those things. And then just trying. Like, I'm not pretending that the first model after we got back from that conference, when we wrote out that list, is the model that we're currently with right now, right? Like, the model that we currently have right now is not the model that we had 6 months ago. So it is going to be ever evolving and ever changing. And then there's going to be seasons too, right? Where we have like, hey, we need to spend a good amount of time with this new leader that needs our support and help and stuff like that. So there's going to be seasons of what we need to do. And so it's always good to have a refocus on those lists of things, especially as you were starting to hire out and stuff like that. But that refocus on making sure that there's a recheck. Normally what we've done at least once a year, I would say, has been a peace index. If y'all haven't done that before, there's a book, I believe Jeremy Kubicek, if I'm not mistaken, by the Giant and all that kind of stuff over there. That peace index book is incredible. It's literally what had us move from Knoxville, Tennessee to Phoenix, because our peace index scored really low on that category for both of us. And we were like,
Can we talk about that? Can we dig into that?
Sure.
Because
Yeah,
I
That's a
think
great book. I hope you guys pick that one up. That's a good book.
that's a great book.
is the book called the Peace Index, or are you guys talking about the Thrive Workbook? Because it has a page about the Peace Index in there. It's one of the giant tools.
No, I believe this. I'll look it up real quick, but I believe the book
The
is
answer
actually.
is it is a tool in the Thrive handbook, but it's from the book. The book dives into the sections more specifically.
Amazing.
I thought I have it right
And
here.
so before you guys moved, you guys were living in Tennessee. What was it about Tennessee that was like taking away from that peace score?
Okay.
Ooh,
If you really want to
We're
do this
getting into
person,
it now.
ooh,
I
ooh,
mean,
this is.
I'm going to answer this question as best as I will. And I hate winter. I hate it. I love you guys. For those of you who love snow and it like makes you happy, cool. You know what I mean? I hate being cold, first off. It's depressing, you know what I mean? When the sky is gray. Don't like it. In Tennessee, the sky is gray for a while when it comes to winter time. So I was like, peace out, Girl Scout. I want my winters to be wonderful. I'm also not a fan of humidity. The summers are super humid out there. I don't like sweating. I like to exercise, and sweating is a result of exercise, sure, but if just for walking outside, no thanks. So not a fan of that. I also felt we were really limited on the things that were within driving distance of us to do. Yes, we love hiking. That was the one thing that I absolutely do miss the most, was the hiking in the Smoky Mountains. I mean, that was what we would do to run away, is go to a place that there's no service and just hike for 3 to 4 hours and just have a great time finding little trails off here left and right. Which we do have hiking out here. It's just not the same because it's not covered in trees and giant spiders that scare you or whatever. Like, we used to have so much fun on the hiking side, but there wasn't a whole lot to do as two young people with kids. Like, there wasn't like, you know, we would eat at the same places all the time. We'd go hang out in the same downtown that had the same things. It was a lot of drinking culture, you know what I mean? So that's what you would do in your downtime. I didn't feel like there was a lot available for us, and we wanted to experience something new. Dave, anything else that you would say?
Yeah, I would say, like, don't get me wrong, the mountains out there, the national park, beautiful, amazing. I do miss some greenery because we are in Phoenix. It's pretty tan out here, but I love like how I grew up in Southwest Florida was there was land. Like, my dad had a lot of land, and that's how I kind of grew up just generally. So with our dogs, I wanted to be able to take them to a place where I wasn't having to have them on leash. Like, we would kind of just like go out meandering, and you didn't have to stick to like one trail. You're actually kind of like just kind of walking through the land and off-roading and stuff like that. So coming out here, it's the Wild West of off-roading. I absolutely love it out here. I can't say it enough. Like, Guns, TNT, I feel like, what's the cartoon?
Yosemite
Looney
Sam.
Tunes.
Yosemite Sam. Thank you.
What did
Yep.
you say, Xander?
Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
Okay. I
Yosemite
was like,
Sam.
who's that? But I'm
I
here.
feel like
Yeah.
Yosemite Sam out here. Like, I can load up my 4Runner, take the dogs with me, go out somewhere. The beautiful thing about this is, like, me and Xander were prepping for conference, I think last week, and I was like, hey man, I gotta go, because like in my calendar it says drive out to the desert to complete the rest of these interviews, and I have to get to a certain location that has cell service out there so I can run the interview. So I have a GPS map of cell service locations out in the middle of the desert where I can park up, let the dogs out, run interviews, send applications. Like, I couldn't do that in Tennessee. It's all private land and stuff like that. It's not possible. So that's what kind of scored low. That's what I was used to. That's what I wanted to get back to. And this has checked all of those boxes now.
Yeah, he was like, like when we lived in Tennessee, he'd be like, "Oh, let's buy some toys, like some for 4-wheelers and some awesome things." And I'm like, "And then take it where? And do what with it? Like, unless you own the land, which there's not a lot of land for sale in East Tennessee that's at least within an hour of a civilization-filled town. You know what I mean? Like, they got little towns, tiny little baby towns, but again, you're eating at the same diners, you're meeting the same people, and that just wasn't our thing. We wanted to have this blend of fun without borders and still having access to great eating experiences that, like, there's never I could see us being here for 10 years and we would not see all the restaurants that are in Phoenix. Like, there's no way.
That's amazing. Yeah, Jared, pretty tough life you live, man. Got to go run interviews in the middle of the desert in a hammock.
Sucks. And let me tell you, it's rough.
And I don't want to take too much of a left turn with this one, but there's something that I have struggled with personally, and it's on the building side, and it's dealing with, it's not the first time I brought this up, but dealing with energy vampires, right? Jordan is just like I think of you as just like a sunshine. Like every room you go into is brighter. You bring that energy. And then Jared, it's not, you're more of like the guard, right? You're not going to let someone in and ruin that. And so I'm just curious, like when you identify that that's kind of where someone's coming from, because I've talked about this before. I spent a lot of time trying to change energy vampires. All that's happened is they leave the situation still being an energy vampire, and then I'm emotionally drained because I couldn't fix it, right? And so I'm just, as a team who has very successfully built, like, honestly, that sunshine culture kind of is throughout y'all's hierarchy, right? Like, I don't want to start naming names because there are too many to list off. I don't want to leave anyone out. Like, how have you guys cultivated that? And I know you guys care so much, like, when you do identify someone like that, how do you help them? Or is there anything you can do? Do they have to do that work themselves?
Man, oh man, oh man. Well, the thing is Xander, I've lived your life for a very long time of giving. Like, one of the things that I love about myself is that I give 100%. Like, and that's something that has been to my demise probably more often than to my benefit. If you look at the grand scheme of things recently, though, in my life, it's definitely been to my benefit based on the people that are around us now. But I mean, I would give 100% because, like I said, when you're learning to lead people, if it's got a pulse, it's on the team. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm like, boom, here we go. I know what I do best. I'm gonna give you 100% of myself in the efforts of support. And probably not challenge, because challenge would mean you wouldn't like me, right? Like, because I want you to like me. And that led to a lot of frustration. It led to a lot of drain. And I mean, I can't tell you how many phone calls we would get coached from Cook when he's like, why are you still taking X person's phone call? Same thing with Jared. He'd come in and he'd see me on the phone and he goes, who is it? And I wouldn't tell him because I would know that he'd be like, get off the phone right now. Like, what are you doing this for? I'd be like, well, they said they needed motivation. And he's like, and you think you're going to be the one who motivates them? They have 5 kids at home. Why isn't that motivating them? And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's what they asked me for, right? And just, constantly just giving. And really what changed for us is, again, Giant. We learned about the support challenge matrix. But we had to get really real about what does support mean long term? Like, what is real support, and defining that within our agency so that I don't feel the way that you feel, right? Because energy vampires exist, and just like successful people who leave clues, energy vampires are louder than most, right? And so that's where Jared comes in. That's where he started asking quality questions in the interview. I can't say you can really tell a sunshine person from the moment you meet them in an interview, but you definitely can tell them after they have accomplished something. That's really what Jared does as the guard. I love that super adorable like picture in my head is like Jared's super buff bouncer and I'm just a little sunflower behind him. And it makes me happy. And now I know what we're going to be for Halloween this year. But like the big
Xander,
thing,
how dare you?
yeah,
Sorry.
we're gonna be kangaroos and have Amelia as one of the little kangaroos, and it's gonna be super cute. Actually, that's what we're
cute
gonna
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it since before we got pregnant. So just saying. But as far as that goes, is he puts something in front of them, those people that are coming in our door, is here's a challenge. Meet the challenge, and then we'll talk. And that has been what has helped us identify who these people are that actually fit our culture. Babe, is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, because when I was initially starting this, like I had said, I had to balance out I can't be too one-sided on that kind of stuff. And I can't just be like, nope, you can't get in until you do X, Y, and Z, right? That's not fair for most people. 9 times out of 10, it's not fair at all. It's not fair 10 times out of 10, let's be real. And it's also not what those people are looking for, right? They're coming from an environment where people were asking too much of them and giving them too little. So if you're going to immediately identify with the same thing that they were dealing with before, you're going to burn way too many people, which I did. So learn that lesson. Don't do that. You meet them where they are initially. So I always like the sport challenge matrix is huge, right? There's a lot of people that do this extremely well in this business that I have stolen a lot of ideas from. And the mentality that I have always is, $1 in, 25 cents out, right? Like I am not asking for much back, but I'm going to meet you where you are and bring you, what you need to start pulling forward, right? So in that interview, I want to understand where they are initially, and then I want to understand what they're shooting for, and then I want to paint the picture on how they can get there. So then there's hope, because that's the biggest thing that people need to wake up with every single day. They need to have hope that this is the thing that's going to get them where they want to go and accomplish what they want to accomplish. They just have to get now through that first initial obstacle. So there has to be underlying hope through the whole process. And that's where that dollar of, deposit into their bank account comes from me on that side. Is I can show you how to get there. I've gotten multiple people there, right, through the years that we've been here. Trust me, and I can get you there. And I'll build that trust, and it'll build stronger and stronger as we continue to move forward. But I can't do the work for you. So I'm going to need you to do X. I'm going to need you to do whatever, right? And the only time that we ever really have hard conversations with those energy vampires is when they say they want whatever, but then they're not willing to take the first step. And what normally happens through those conversations is they're all normally like Zoom conversations with initial agents, because I want to have the highest form of efficient conversation with us being remote, which, Zoom, like phone call, email, text message, or however that hierarchy goes. I'm pretty sure maybe text and then email. But Zoom at least is the highest form right under, face-to-face. So I want to keep those Zooms with those initial agents. But then if you're continually not meeting that first initial step of challenge, I am going to downgrade our communication. And that's one of the signs of like, hey, I need you to recognize you're falling on my priority list of communication here. So now instead of Zoom, if, hey, I need to figure out how much leads we're going to invest in first. Hey, we already discussed that on the first one. So I just want to make sure, did we take notes on that? I'll go through it again with you, but now it's a phone call, right? And then the next time it's reaching out, hey, I'm a little slammed today. What can I help you out with via text? And so we just start downgrading those people. And I'm not trying to do it to hurt their feelings. It would be selfish and undeserving of me to give them time when they're not actually utilizing the time, when someone else will actually utilize the time and I'm taking from them. Like, that's not fair for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's amazing.
We used to,
I'm going to take
Or
that
go ahead,
just so
Sandy.
you know, that's getting stolen. Because I definitely, I see both sides of it. And I'm kind of more probably on Jordan's side, where currently I need to get to more on Jared's side of like, I love seeing people win, and I want them to win so bad, like worse than they do sometimes. And it's just not going to work. It's putting the cart before the horse.
Well, I mean, I think that's what I had to also check myself, Xander, was asking myself, why do I want these people to win more than they do? That conversation with myself had me get real honest about that means that I want something from them that they don't even want from themselves. And then really, where is that motive coming from? As much as it may feel like we're doing it for them, no, we're not. And so that was where Babe was able to help me understand, like, I've back in the day, and Elijah will maybe appreciate this, or at least you'll see it. I remember I had an agent one time I sat in the home with her. I did a ride along. It was a $300 a month policy. All she had to do was get a policy receipt signed to get it paid. Because, that was a thing back in the day, is actually getting a hand signature on a policy receipt. And she was too busy for whatever reason for a week and a half to go do this. that I drove my butt out there, went to her house where she was, grabbed the form, drove to the client's house, got the signature, drove it back to her house, and then she got paid and she quit. She got paid and she quit. And I thought, look at me, I'm really doing this for someone else. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Like I'm only setting someone up for failure, and I'm definitely setting my time up for failure as well. And so I'll tell you, I get it. It has good intentions on the deep down, but it's the short term good intentions, not the long term.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that for sure.
That's good. I've made that mistake too, because we want to rob new agents of the struggle because we went through it, and it's like, well, this is tough. I've been there. I've done that. It'll be easier for me to just either do it for you or handhold you through the process of whatever the obstacle is, getting a delivery receipt, calling a client who canceled, whatever. And I've made that mistake so many times, and then went to the opposite extreme where I was overly challenging to people who needed a little bit of support, but I was scared to be supportive because I created all these needy, codependent agents who didn't do shit. And then I would get mad that they weren't doing what I taught them, and I ended up pushing people away. And that's what is the byproduct of not operating with the right balance of challenge and support. And what you guys are describing, I think, is wonderful, because if you're overly supportive, everything is great, you're doing awesome, you made 10 calls this week, keep up the good work, you're just going to create a team of a bunch of cheerleaders who never do anything. They're just always excited to be around. And then if you're in the opposite camp where I was, where it's always, you got to do more, you're not doing enough, you're overly challenging, you're going to push people away and become a leader nobody wants to talk to. And in doing that, I wasn't listening to the mentorship I was receiving from Chris when I would call him with these problems, like, hey man, another person quit, I'm down to 2 agents, like, what do I do? And then, well, you know, I ended up on Chris's what's up text list. I'd call Chris, and instead of him answering the phone, he'd be like, busy, what's up? Now, thankfully, I got out of that stage. I'm no longer on his text list, but he had to identify who was worth his investment of time, you know, because you can't give every agent the same amount of time. 80% of your agency's results are going to come from about 20% of the people in your team.
Ryan Delaney made such a good point about this, and it's called being somebody's enemy of their mediocrity. And you create tension in a relationship out of love.
That's
and
good.
I'm telling you, ever since I heard that, I struggle so hard to, it's like whenever you're staying quiet at the end of, you know, a sale, and you want to stay quiet long enough for them to start talking first, and you just want to speak up and ruin it because it's so uncomfortable. Making that tension in those relationships when you can tell somebody is operating less than what they should be because you love them and you see the bigger picture, you just sit there and you just like let them experience what the tension feels like when you're not going to support that level of how they show up. And I'll tell you, that's hard. That's one of the hardest things. But then it becomes fun because you know it's out of love. You know what I mean? And that's what I heard from that, Elijah.
Yeah. So, Jordan, you do the production mainly. Jared, you're not out there wheeling and dealing policies anymore. I've heard some funny stories about back in the day when you guys would go see people in person together. But you do the recruiting primarily. You guys both share in the training and the mentorship. When you guys are, you guys are growing at such a rate. To me, it'd be a bit overwhelming. How do you keep all this stuff organized? Like, are you guys staffed out? Do you just have spreadsheets up on the walls everywhere? Like, what do you guys recommend for people to keep track of all this stuff? Because you guys are, you've done over $6 million in sales, and you guys are going to get to the point where that's going to be like an annual thing. How do you track it all, man?
Yeah, can you imagine if we didn't have any staff whatsoever, how many whiteboards would need to be in this house to track all of this stuff? Somebody would come over our house and be like, you guys are literally insane. Like you guys murdering people? Like, you tracking all this? What's going on in this house? Yeah. If we didn't have staff, this would be wild. And I would say, listen to your mentor about staffing up earlier than you're expecting that you're going to need to. Because if you're not going to staff up earlier than you're expecting to need to, then you're not going to grow your business at the level that you want to. Because what Chris Cook has always taught us, and it has never not been true, right? In the sense of, like, you are always going to invest in the business that you want, not the business that you have. We can't say this is the amount of income that we have coming in, and this is the, APV and the writers and all that kind of stuff that we currently have. So it only makes sense to pay this amount of money for an admin. That will only limit the amount of growth that you can accomplish. Like, instead, we're focused not on what we're currently doing right now, but what we want to do and what we're projecting to do. And then we want to meet where that admin is going to accomplish, or we're going to meet, where that admin is going to be holding the responsibilities of that level of agency. Because it's so crazy how, like, you build it and they will come is literally true through this process, right? You build out admins to help out through different stages of this business and build it up to a part where you can handle, right, 50 agents in a week, 75 agents in a month, whatever the case may be through your process. You'll find that many agents now that will start to come on, because you're going to start to attract the level and quality and caliber of person that is looking for an outfit in a group that is going to be able to support them, right? Like, I very recently had an interview that asked me a really good question on, like, how big's your agency right now? And, are you guys looking to grow? And I was like, if I'm not looking to grow, we're shrinking, man. Like, there's only two ways that you go in this business. And he goes, no, I love that. Let me reframe the question. Can you handle more agents currently right now? And I go, oh yeah, absolutely. We've got Zoom rooms and admins, and we've got support chats and all this kind of stuff. I was like, we can handle a ton more agents. And he goes, okay, cool. Got it. Understood. They're looking for that stuff, whether or not if they're being as transparent on asking the question like that with you every single time. So either you're not going to staff out and you're going to attract smaller caliber people that aren't going to be privy to looking for those kinds of things, or you're going to staff out and freak out and your stomach's going to roll because of the amount of money going out in the business. Don't get me wrong. It is uncomfortable. But once you get to that level, oh man, if we would have staffed up when Chris and Lauren actually told us to staff up, can you imagine where we'd be at right now? It would be insane. If we actually listened to them, crazy.
I know. And here's the other thing, y'all, is that at least in our industry and in this company, you don't even have to staff out as much as you would if you were working anywhere else, because of how much support we have with the home office, with as much support we have within the Cook Master Agency being so helpful with each other. Like right now, I just looked at my phone because, I'm still on call for helping agents and stuff periodically. But our underwriting support group right now that has a group chat is working nonstop together with at least 6 appointments that people are actively in right now with our leadership and upcoming leadership, making sure they know where to go, but we're here, right? So it's about putting in place safety nets, is how my dad puts it, putting in place safety nets that you could rely on because of people's strengths, whether that's because you pay them or because they get something from helping other people, whether it's learning something or because they enjoy teaching and giving back. And that also creates that culture in our agency where we're all for one. And so super excited for that question right there, because it's taken us a while to get here. We would normally put so much on our own back because we wanted to make sure it was done right, versus trusting that there are people out there, even if they did it 70% as well as what we did it, are worth paying to do that job. Like taxes, forget about it. I am so glad we hired a CPA. It is the best money we spend year round. I don't care how much money it costs us. It saves me more stress than I could ever imagine, and more money annually than I could ever imagine in taxes. And as much as people are like, well, I'd rather save the money and do my taxes myself, good luck. Good luck is all I have to say to that, because you are not going to be able to scale your business if you are so stressed out about how do you pinch pennies on your taxes, you should not be thinking about pinching pennies on your taxes. You should be thinking about staffing up somebody who will do that lovingly and enjoy it and thrive on it. And that's their sole focus, so that you can spend your time focused on the things that put more money in your bank account. And I'm so grateful for that hire every single day, every day.
You're talking like a CEO, Jordan. I love it.
No, thanks.
I mean, simple skills, right? Like we've talked about this before. Like if you can remove as much friction as possible, and like honestly, shout out to Quility and all the stuff they're doing. Like, you know, it's obviously gotten better over time, and I got here after all of you. But even just in my short time here, right? You know, there's an underwriting cheat sheet, right? And then you get your leads from Opt, and then you've got HQ for all this, SFG quotes, all these different places, disparate places to put this together. And I noticed there would be agents who maybe sometimes a little bit older, aren't as tech savvy, that was really hard for them. And Quility sees that because they talk to agents, and they're like, okay, so what we're going to do now is you get all your leads from one place. You can make your phone calls and your text messages from one place. We're going to remove as many of the decisions out of that as possible using data-driven decisions. You can submit, you can underwrite, you can do everything. You can track your business all in one place. So kind of just want to double click what you were saying there, Jordan, about like home office does so much for us and making our lives easier. But what y'all said there about CPAs, I'm right there with you. I left my taxes to the last minute every time, and now I pay a guy more than I thought I ever would, but he's incredible. Anytime he needs something, he just calls me. He's like, hey, Xander, I need your XYZ. I'm like, cool, I'll get it to you. And then I just pay him, and he, honestly, because he knows so much, probably saves me more money than it costs to hire him. And I don't have to spend...
I can go ahead and tell you, I take the word probably out of your vocabulary on that.
Yeah, I hate taxes. And the mind share that's dedicated to it, like it's just sitting on you, and you're like, I got to get this done, but I don't know how to do it, and it feels so overwhelming. Pay a professional, make your life easier.
Well, in Quility, Xander, holy crap, can you, like, if we really zoomed out and looked at what Quility does on tracking individual agencies, individual agents, submitting business, lead trends, like cost analysis, all that kind of stuff, at minimum, that probably saves each individual person that is looking to build an agency here probably $5,000 of staffing up per month at minimum, I would say. Like that type of person to pull all of that information from different sources and put it together in such a simple way to read it and digest it really quickly, minimum of 5,000 on staffing. I would say that Quility website saves us, and all the tools that gives us. That's wild.
I think a lot of people also don't think about the fact that Quility also offers a conservation team. And if you all really understood how important it is to have a staff member that you do not have to pay, Symmetry pays them. Symmetry pays them. We don't. And all they do is call through your clients that are behind due on their payments to make sure their policies stay on the books. And it's not from a sales perspective, it's a customer service perspective. And I can't tell you, there's probably, I'd say over 100,000 in business that stays on the books just in our agency alone, year over year, just because of those people in that role trying to conserve business. I couldn't imagine what it does for Symmetry as a whole. So I'm grateful for it every single day, that the only payroll that we focus on are the things that in our business, take more time away from us for what the money was worth. And it's as simple as, leaderboards or social media promotions, or like I said, taxes and CPA work. A lot of what we do is so profitable because that's what we have dedicated our time to.
That's good. I got a couple rapid fire questions for you guys. I just looked at the time and realized we've been recording for over an hour, so I apologize. I told you guys half an hour.
I didn't even realize.
If you could have told me it's been a half hour and we'd been fine.
I got a couple questions. Some of these may be insurance related, some not so much. So from each of you guys, what's your favorite book on leadership you've read over the last 8 years? If you had to pick one, I know that's a hard question. Favorite book on leadership from the woman's perspective, the man's perspective. Maybe it's the same book.
Babe, what's yours? You have one?
Leadership is
Mhm.
the question, right? Not just personal development, but we're talking about
Jared
leadership.
has one. I can see it.
I have one. So
Well, go.
see when no, well, ladies first. Well, see, what I wanted to make sure of, right, is like when I'm looking at this book, it's the principles from this book have helped when we weren't even focusing on leadership all the way into leadership. And it's by Ryan Holiday, Obstacle is the Way. When you understand like the thing that something will sit on, it's kind of in tandem with like eat that frog on a daily basis. Like when you understand the thing, like if you're letting it just sit on your head, like this happens all the time, right? Don't get me wrong. There's conflicts in business when we're working with people all the time. It is never going to end. It will always be a thing. How you handle it is different. So Obstacle is the Way has put me in a sense in a frame of mind to where like if I'm sitting on a thought like, hey, when they said this, I feel like that kind of hurt my feelings. Maybe like, why did they come at me like that? I'm going to call that person and be like, hey, what did you mean when you said this? Like, what was coming from that? 9 times out of 10, I'm framing it in the wrong way. And then it's done and it's over. And that person respects that I'm bringing something to them because as I'm communicating with them, I'm going, hey, I respect our relationship enough where I'm not trying to sweep this under the rug. I want to handle this with you and then let's move on. And it builds the relationship 10 times more. So that book, for the simple principle of just handling things with people, has helped out with relationships, which is honestly what leadership is, if you ask me.
Yeah. And I would say my book would be The 100X Leader, also by Giant. It's by Jeremy Kubicek and Steve Cockrum. The 100X Leader was one of those books that I would read first thing in the morning when Babe was sous chef and still for a little bit. And he'd come in and see me on the couch just crying. And he's like, why are you crying? I'm like, because I'm screwing all this up and I'm realizing I'm not who I want to be and blah, blah, blah. He'd be like, oh my God, too early. Like, stop. And I'll tell you, that book was so insightful for that support challenge matrix of understanding who I am and the strengths that I actually have to offer, that the things that I was doing to my demise could be also to my strengths when channeled in the right direction. Like that's what that book really helped me understand, not just me, but also the different other types of voices out there that I could connect with now because I understand that they don't hear or think the same way that I do. And I give a lot of credit to that book.
I've read both of those and I retweet all that. Xander, you got a rapid fire question for me? If not, I got a couple more lined up.
Dude, I like where you're taking it. You take care of the torch.
So I got one for Jordan. I know this may vary client to client, month to month. Do you have a favorite insurance carrier that we're repping right now?
Huh?
Favorite carrier or favorite product?
Absolutely. My favorite carrier, I wouldn't go favorite product. I would go favorite carrier is American Amicable all day.
Hey,
I love them.
you and me
I
both.
love them. I think they're phenomenal to work with. Customer service is amazing.
Yep.
They're representative as far as how quickly they get back to you. The degree of agent care that they also provide is one-on-one.
Yep.
A live web chat for every piece of your business, from commissions to debt management. If you have agents that have debts and communicating with them how to handle and manage that, to new business, to policy services, to having all of that in a live web chat. And I mean, I love their commissions. I think their commissions are incredible. I love the fact that they don't pay you until the client pays their first premium, because there's a lot of agents that post date policies, and that's cool. I'd rather you get paid on that when they actually pay their policy and not before, and then they change their mind before they pay their premium. I think I love the leniency, the fact that they actually look at a client for who they are and what they take their prescriptions and what health conditions they actually have instead of just a medical coding. It's very transparent, and I'm old school. I like
Me
that
too.
stuff.
They're my first love as far as insurance carriers go. First policy I ever wrote was AmAm. They throw a kick-ass carrier trip too.
My first
Not gonna
one was
lie.
AmAm too. I just remembered that. Yeah.
I've got Pete Mejia. I think he's the vice president of AmAm or the president, and him and I will
I
text
know
back
he
and
got
forth.
a promotion recently, so I don't know what his title is anymore.
I don't either, but they are awesome. They're my favorite. Jared, do you have a least favorite recruiting platform? Any recruiting platform did you dirty that you wanna rag on, or
I'm trying
Airing
to
that you
grievances.
wouldn't recommend?
pull through the mud here.
Yeah, because I mean, recruiting ain't free. I mean, unless you're doing warm market, which is awesome. You should do both. But Jared, you're a master at the cold market recruiting, and you guys have spent tens of thousands of dollars on recruiting over the years. So I trust your opinion.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to them all. I think the one that hated on me the most was LinkedIn. I'm not saying that they're not a bad, viable option. Like, everything works, nothing doesn't, right? The one that hated on me the most was LinkedIn now. The ones that would actually talk to me and work through problems and all that kind of stuff. All of those are on my good list. Yeah, that's the only one that really hated on me a lot.
LinkedIn stock's about to go down after we publish this. Do you, I would say, you guys are really good at getting new agents profitable quick. And I think that is, if you're going to be recruiting, that should be a huge focus, because you can't be bringing people into your company and then they're not making money, because then you just become a revolving door of people constantly quitting. Are there a couple of keys that you'd give to anybody who's maybe in their first couple months wanting to start recruiting? You guys started recruiting right away. You didn't sell for a couple years before you started building. And so you've been doing this from day one. How do you get new agents started so quick? Or what are the couple keys that you'd give to get a new agent profitable? What do they focus on?
Transparency in the beginning. What you're going to need to do from day one, right? I'm not trying to bring somebody in the door, selling them a rainbow, and then they walk through the door and it's mud that they're stepping into, right? I'm telling you that you are going to have to go through the trenches first. There is a learning curve that you're going to have to get through, right? You're going to have to expect 30 to 40% more hours going through the learning curve, rather than what this position actually requires to maintain and build up a normal kind of income that you're looking for. If you're willing to do that, then I can show you how to get through it in an average of about 14 days, right? That's what I see. I can see getting agents through their learning curve in 14 days when they're willing to add an additional 30 to 40% of hours onto their work schedule for whether it was 14 days. Because the training that we have, the workrooms that we have to work from, right? They don't have to just listen to me, to Jordan, right? They can hear you dial, they can hear Xander dial, they can hear all these people dial, where they can groove with somebody else a little bit better than maybe just their direct kind of mentor that's helping them through the process. So getting new agents started, don't be the source. Number one, don't be the person that has all the answers for them. And lay out the requirements, lay out what the expectations will be from the very beginning. And if that loses a potential candidate coming in the door, you just save them and you a whole lot of time and stress. And if that's not a win, right? If you're looking at that as a loss, then you're looking at this incorrectly.
I think being just you're going to find people with the right expectations that are going to see this challenge and run with it. I would give myself credit of, my first day of dialing, I'll never forget, because I was in Chris Cook's office. I had a landline in front of me. I had my mentor at the time standing behind me. I had a tiny little script that, remember, Cook script was all we had back then. We didn't even have a best script. We had a Cook script. And the Cook script was so simple. No health questions, no nothing. It was just, I'm calling you about this, and when would be a good time I could come by your house, really, is all it was. And I remember being scared to death making those calls, because the lady would say hello, and I'd mute the line, and I'd look up at my mentor now what do I do? And he's like, read what's on the paper. And I'd be like, unmute. Hey, so-and-so, mute. Look back at my mentor. And he's like, stop looking at me, go back to the paper, right? And I would do that, and that's how I booked my first appointment. But my mentor told me he wasn't going to go with me to my first appointments if I didn't have 8 in a day, because then he would have to take his day off from running in the field where he's more profitable on his own pen, on his own commission track, to be with me. And I said, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not going alone. I'm going to have 8 appointments in a day. And I just sat there and I dialed and I dialed and I dialed on $140 worth of leads until I had 8 appointments on the books. I was, you're going to find somebody when you set expectations that need to be where that agent is going to be successful. When you set them high enough, you're going to find someone who's going to meet that, to prove you wrong, to prove the system wrong. And if you give them expectations that are going to fail them, then you're going to fail them. right? It's either they're going to meet the expectations because that's the kind of person you have found, is somebody who's going to get themselves there, or you might set the expectations too low because you're trying to protect them or something, and, give them some sort of degree of hope. Hope comes when they put money in their bank account. Hope comes when they run appointments and they see that this works, that they're actually going to be in front of somebody who wants insurance from a letter that they submitted to the company. Like that's where they go, oh, this actually works, when I read the script and I do the numbers. But if you tell them like, hey, you just get 2 appointments, you're amazing. Like, no, like they're gonna get no-showed by both of them and then think that you suck, is what's gonna happen. And so that would be definitely where I'd give some headway of, if you want to get a new agent started quick, just tell them the right things to do, and then the right people will go do those things to try to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And it works every time.
100%. I've seen that. Thankfully, I've been continuing. I'm picking things up along the way. And as Elijah says, I guess to try and land this plane, one thing that I'm really curious about is, we got Knoxville coming up next week, which can't wait to hang out with all 3 of you. And I've noticed that I get a different takeaway from every conference that I go to, right? The first one was like, okay, this is possible, right? The second one was, wow, I can do this full time. Like I can really make this happen here. Third one, I'm bringing more people with me. And now I'm bringing 10 or 11 people with me to this one, which I'm real excited about. So I have a pretty good feeling that, as much as I'm looking to take away, like, okay, what's my next step going to be? I'm also looking to help, foster some of that excitement and belief inside of them when you're at you guys' level, right? I don't know how many total agents you have, but you could probably fill a castle with them. What are you guys looking to take away from conference? Are you more thinking about what the agents on your team are taking away? I know personally, I'm running some breakouts with Jared and you, Elijah. I'm a little bit salty that I'm not going to get to sit in on some of the other breakouts. So I'm just curious, like, what does that look like? You guys have been to a bajillion events, and like, how do you think about that going into those?
First thing I would say is the conference that we got the least from was the conference when we were focused on what other agents were getting from that conference. The conferences that we've got the most from is when I have a notebook full of people that I want to talk to and questions that I want to ask and goals that I have coming from that conference. Because something, it was good. Something from our accountability group. We had a guest speaker on our accountability group, but it was inside of the group. One of our agents, Madison Abraham, she said, I don't like how it's talked about where you have to pour from your cup, because then that's taking from you. I like it to where you're overfilling your cup and you're pouring into other people. And I was like, that's great. I absolutely love that. So that's what we get, right? Like, I don't just fill my cup from these conferences. I fill it so much that I overfill now and I overflow into everybody else around me. If I'm only focused on what they're getting, I'm not getting anything. And now I'm almost taking from them at that level. So that's the biggest thing that I'm looking for. And like you said, right, like we're going to be coaching some of these breakout sessions. So we're not going to get everything that we want from all the breakout sessions there. But I'm going to figure out how to make that as efficient as possible and, talk to the people that I want to talk to that we normally only get to see on Zoom, and get the most that I'm looking for. Hey, I like how you do this. Reverse engineer that for me. What does that look like on the back end?
I love it.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing I'm looking to get out of conference is relationships. Relationships are so key, whether they're down within our agency or if we could be of any sort of light to somebody in another person's agency. You know what I mean? That's something where I'm looking for. I'm looking to stretch the way that I think. I'm grateful for, oh my goodness, I have so many calls coming through. I'm grateful for, like, when we went to leadership in New Orleans, that was such a stretching thought, like, exercise for me, was to see the bigger picture and to actually be all in. I'm excited to build deeper relationships with these moms in our agency that are figuring out how to do this at such a high level, despite being pulled in 100 directions, because I know that this is a new challenge. coming up for me. And I apologize if I sound like I'm dying from acid reflux. It's because I am, and it's just a part of growing a person. But yeah, so I'm just really excited for spending that quality time, developing these relationships, stretching the way that I think, building with other people's beliefs in what they want. Like, I want to get a better understanding of how big can our leaders see their businesses getting, and how can I help that piece of it. And the best part about it is having those conversations in person so that we can actually physically lock arms, metaphorically move forward together. But just like having that relationship has been so important in our agency with all of our awesome people that we have. We're excited for the one-on-one time.
Heck yeah. I couldn't have put it
good.
much better myself. And definitely good to hear. I need to focus on what I'm taking away so that I can, and that'll kind of flow over into others. Parting thoughts. Somebody listening to this, probably multiple people, are like, I love these two. I want to be a part of their team. How can they find you and get in touch with you guys?
Oh yeah. GillumSFG.com. There's a client-facing side of that, and then there's a recruiting side of that where you can actually apply and hop right on my calendar. And then if you want to talk to Jordan, just put it in the notes, and I'll throw that interview over to her if you really need that. But yeah, no, just Gillum SFG, so like SallyFrankGirl.com.
I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for being on here, freely giving of your time, sharing 8 years of wisdom, trial and error, and just pouring into whoever decides to listen to this. Really appreciative of you guys, and cool to get you on here. We've been running this journey for years now, and seeing your guys' growth has been just motivating and inspiring, because this business is peaks and valleys, right? And even plateaus, but you guys have not stayed where you're at. That's never the goal. You guys are constantly growing, moving and shaking and improving and doing things. And I love the humility with which you guys lead. And you guys are dominating. And I can't wait to hug your necks next week in Tennessee. But tune in. We're not going to post an episode next week because we're going to be at conference, but catch us the week after in March, and hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Peace.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for the opportunity, guys.
Thank you.